Hello there. Today I watched the film Hypnotic, and now I want to tell you about it. Hypnotic is a mystery thriller written and directed by Robert Rodriguez with the help of writer Max Borenstein. It stars Ben Affleck, Alice Braga, and J.D. Pardo. The film opens up with Detective Danny Rourke, Ben Affleck, talking to his therapist. They're discussing the disappearance of his daughter when his partner Nix, J.D. Pardo, texts him that something's come up at work and they need to go. Danny and Nix head toward a sting operation set up outside of a bank. On their way, they listen to a tape from an anonymous tipster telling them that the bank is going to be robbed. Nix tells Danny there were several similar break-ins at nearby banks, and when they arrive, they find several officers already set up and waiting. Through the cameras, they see a man talking to random people and acting strangely. Rourke spots a pattern and ends up running inside to try and get ahead of the man. He sneaks into the vault before the robber can get there and finds the only object inside is a picture of his missing daughter. Rourke finds himself left questioning his daughter's disappearance and chasing after the bank robber. The story involves a mysterious government agency, hypnotic powers, and a lot of red herrings. As far as confusing plot lines go, this one takes the cake. It starts off by telling the audience one story and letting them stew for a while without explaining the concept of hypnotics. You don't know what's going on, and the robber looks like a magician. Once they finally explain to you what hypnotics are, it becomes impossible to take anything that happens seriously. You just can't be sure what's real and what isn't. For an hour, we're shown a strange series of events that are filled with small bouts of extreme violence, a lot of exposition dumping, and a seemingly godlike villain that's always one step ahead of everyone. Then an hour into the film, they pull back the curtain and retell that same story with a whole new context. The second scenario that plays out is still visually confusing, but at least with the added context, you can make sense of what's going on in real time, and actually start investing in the characters. Unfortunately, it's a little too late by that point. The film ends shortly afterward without giving the actors time to express their emotions properly. The story technically makes sense even though it involves a lot of fantasy concepts, but it isn't exciting. The fantasy elements keep the audience from heavily investing in any one character, and the impact of all the violence and action is softened by the concept of hypnotics. The cast does what they can to try to make the emotions and characters feel genuine, but the story doesn't delve deep into who any of these people are, and again, the concept of hypnotics makes it hard for the audience to trust any of the information we're given. The majority of the screen time goes to Ben Affleck, who's doing his usual action hero with a heart of gold routine. He's gruff, he grunts and huffs a lot, and he talks in a grizzled but soft voice. We don't learn much about his character or motivations until the end of the film, but when we finally get to the emotional moments, Affleck does them well. Next to Affleck are William Fichtner and Alice Braga. Fichtner plays the mysterious villain and Braga plays the mysterious woman, with all the answers. Neither of them gets the chance to develop their characters, and half of what they end up doing is exposition dumping. Like Affleck, they struggle to connect with the audience due to the nature of the story, and none of them manages to make their character feel memorable. They're all pretty standard people without any quirks or nuances that might make them interesting. The visual journey is a grimy trek through dimly lit locations for the first hour, and then a short trippy jog to the finish in the last 30. It makes sense as you're watching it, but the story keeps telling you not to trust what you're seeing. When the hypnotic scenes start up, they look like something out of Inception. The sky and the ground start to blend, and their perspective starts to get weird. The film only does this once or twice, though, and thus it's hard to tell when someone is affected by a hypnotic. Violence tends to be kind of extreme, and the action sequences are short and standard affairs. In the end, nothing stood out about the visual journey. The locations and characters are all forgettable, and none of the shots or sequences were exceptional. It's shot well enough, but it's just kind of boring. The soundtrack suffers from the same problem. It's filled with background instrumentals that are all well mixed and match well with the mood of the story. Problem is that they just never stand out. They're sitting behind the scenery, and they're helping to set up the atmosphere properly, but there's never a moment when they come together with the actors to create something special. The songs are often quite simple and repetitive, and you'd never listen to them on their own. They're movie tracks meant to elicit a certain feeling. Overall, Hypnotic is just a boring film. It lacks the glue that it needs to hold the story together and make it interesting, and it doesn't stand out in any way. The cast fails to make memorable characters, the writing is convoluted, there aren't any standout scenes, and the soundtrack isn't having a huge impact. It's also trying to work with a highly complex concept that's been done before and been done better. 4 out of 10. And remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Bye-bye.